They say that experience matters in the NFL, but whoever they are, they have never met Brock Purdy. Because Big Brock has basically just stepped on an NFL field and immediately become one of the best stories of the entire season. He's gone from Mr. Irrelevant to Mr. Extremely Relevant in less than 8 quarters. And he just put a beat down on the GOAT himself. Mr. Extremely Relevant didn't just beat Bacon 45 yesterday. He did it in his first career start. Something no other quarterback had ever pulled off. And Big Brock didn't just beat Brady's ass. He beat it so thoroughly that he got to sit and watch the last 8 minutes of that game. Mr. Extremely Relevant beat the geriatric GOAT so badly, he had garbage time to spare. Garbage! All this talk about how would he react? How would he do against the GOAT? How would he do? He kicked this guy's ass so thoroughly, he got to revel in it in garbage time. Their garbage time. Which is why Niner fan and Niner player are all thinking the exact same thing that Nick Bosa said out loud after the game. What were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on his play? Well, we got a quarterback. Yet San Francisco looks like they may well have a quarterback. They look like they very well may have a quarterback. Now, we all know for damn sure they already have a defense, a damn good defense. Then again, we also know that they can never have anything nice without some kind of brutal injury luck. And this week, the brutal injury luck came in the form of Debo. Very scary looking play. A moment that once again seemed like the season was going to flash right before San Fran fans' eyes. But no matter how many times this seems to happen, they only seem to get better. It's incredible. They only seem to get hotter. The Niners have now run off 6 in a row, and they seem to look better and better every single week, no matter who gets dinged. And I'm not talking about guys that are negligible. I'm talking about their go-to guys. Luckily for them, they may have dodged a bullet. It looks like Debo avoided the absolute worst-case scenario, and maybe it's a high ankle sprain. Never a good thing, but there are worse things, and they expected worse when he went down. We'll know more today. The bottom line, though, the Niners cannot seem to catch a break, but they can't seem to catch an L either. Like, they don't care about not catching breaks. They can't catch a break, but it doesn't seem like they need any breaks. They just keep stepping up, which is why San Fran fans got to be like, easy, Jimmy. Don't be tripping, brah. You're harshing our buzz. Everything's hella good here, dude. Bruh. Relax, brah.
Hey, Frisco fan.
Hey, Frisco fan. Hey, SoCal host. Relax, brah. Everything's hella good. Hey, SoCal host. Stop be hating. Look at us.
Hey, Frisco.
I get it. The vibes are really good in the Bay right now. In fact, they're great, and they should be. But the very best vibes in the NFL are coming from one of the least likely sources ever. I'm looking at you, Detroit. I'm looking at the D. Because right now I feel like the entire country is ready to run through a wall for head coach Dan Cannibal. At least I know the Lions are. They definitely are. This is no longer just a good story now. Detroit proved yesterday that they are a legitimate problem. Anyone who was wondering why they were favored over the 10-2 Vikings just found out. It's because right now they're better than the 10-2 Vikings. They didn't just win that game. They didn't just cover. They did it in the most Dan Cannibal way ever. Because arguably, the 2 key plays in that game were absolutely insane. I mean, the type of plays that only a coaching cannibal would dial up. You know, the kind of thing we've come to expect from Dan Cannibal, and only Dan Cannibal. You know, a fake punt on 4th and 7 from their own 27 while up 7 points in the third quarter.
Their first drive of the second.
I want to tell you something. We're not talking about a team that's 1-10-1 with nothing to lose. All right, they had a lot to lose. They're in this thing. You want to talk about a team full of brass sets. And that wasn't even the wildest Lions call of the game. because with the game on the line late in the fourth, they decide to draw up a play-action pass for their right tackle. Why not just toss it up to the 6'5", 335-pound right tackle? Because that's normal. That's about as normal as the Lions being one of the scarier teams in the NFL right now. Wow! And they are. Wow, 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 wow.
Wow.
They're not. That was an appropriate response, too. And Vilma normally is not that guy. That is an appropriate response. Whoa! The Lions aren't just hot. They're good. They're not just entertaining. They're legit. They're not just fun. They're dangerous. And they're in the hunt. Like the playoff hunt. They're now just one game back of the Giants and Seahawks in the win column right now. They started 1-6. And they're just back of the Giants and Seahawks, who earlier seemed like they were locks. Locks. And look at the remaining schedule. They've got the Jets, the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers. As in, there are more wins coming. AKA, there's more coming. So the Niners and the Lions, really hot right now. Among the hottest teams in the NFL. And suddenly, the Miami Dolphins might be the coldest. I mean, were we not just hyping them up? I know I was. Guilty. I was hyping the hell out of these guys. Loving these guys. But they spent the week out here in Cali getting their asses handed to them in the Bay Area. And I guess Cali's no good for Miami because last night they got roughed up again down here in SoCal. And an especially rough go for Tua and for Tua fan, especially those on social media who are calling themselves Tuanon. Because for Tuanon, saying Tua is great is not good enough. They also need everybody to agree that Tua is better than Justin Herbert. You know, that's pretty much Tuanon. Because, of course, right? Tua and Herbert, as we all know, were selected one pick apart in the 2020 draft. Miami, of course, chose first, and Miami, of course, chose Tua. And seemingly the narrative had changed overnight from Herbert being an absolute stud and Tua being the worst draft pick ever and an absolute bust to somehow that whole narrative flipping on its head. Yeah, I have a response. Herbert is still who we thought he was. An absolute freaking stud.
What a stud!
And Tua, unfortunately, is starting to look like who we thought he was prior to them ripping off 5 wins in a row. And Mike McDaniel showing up. I'm not saying that he's that guy, nor am I saying that he's this guy. I don't really know at this point. But I would say he's had a couple of really bad games. Last night especially. I mean, flat out, he was terrible last night. 10 of 28 for 145 yards. And that was his final stat line. But he was 3 of 15 in the first half. I mean, essentially horrible. And if it wasn't for possibly the single most bizarre play of the entire season, that game would have been even uglier and so much worse for Miami. Yep. So that was the best offense Miami had all night long. That was some of the only offense Miami had all night long. In fact, those 57 yards on the Cheetah Scoop were more yards than the entire Dolphins offense had in the entire first half. They were that bad. And against a Chargers defense that was really banged up coming in. So that sets up an enormous game against the Bills in Buffalo Saturday night. Saturday Night Football is back this week, and that rematch is absolutely huge for Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins, especially after they dropped that enormous dump in their pants at SoFi last night. But that's not even the biggest dump in anybody's pants of the week. That was still to come. Clearly, I have buried the lead this morning because the game that everybody had circled was obviously Panthers, Seahawks in Seattle. Well, everybody who listens to Big Head bets at least, because you were all about that on Twitter. And you were right to be all about that on Twitter. the speed-talking gum assassin, actually blew a critical game to the Sam Darnold-led Panthers, who are somehow now in second place in the horrific NFC South. Not only are the horrific Panthers still in the playoff hunt, incredibly, they actually control their own destiny. That's how terrible that division is. And equally incredibly, the Seahawks are now somehow on the outside looking in because they couldn't beat the damn Panthers at home. So the gum assassin might have just assassinated his team's playoff chances and Jim Rome's Big Head Bets podcast. Well, maybe not the podcast. That's still awesome. But it may have eliminated the head.